So we got to get away from all this other stuff which is well advanced and matured. That's the complexity of KM. And we really got to start focusing in on the A, B, and C of the alphabet. And I belong, you may or may not know, I'm a charter member of the New Club of Paris. We're in our 6th year. We're trying to come up with a financial accounting standards international. Baruch Lev is part of the team. He's beginning to work on, I know you're laughing, I mean, but give the guy credit. I mean, who else is tackling this in a serious way? Now he's working on organizational capital because that's probably one of the least understood aspects. And I got stories on that, but I'll save it for another day.
I'd actually like to throw out a different question because I think the discussion is coming to a very good point. Maybe the question, what are the roles and responsibilities of knowledge professionals, is not exactly the right question. Maybe the question is, because that actually speaks to more of a 1900s view of an organization. So maybe the question that we want to ask and carry forward is, what are the functions? Maybe is functions a better, or what is it that knowledge professionals do? And I want to throw out one other question, which is, from my time at the World Bank, there was a point in time when what we were doing at KM was exactly what we needed to do, because we were such a stovepipe organization and nobody talked to one another across sector boards. So that was right for the World Bank at that time. And 5 years later, we needed a different KM strategy. And today, what the World Bank is working on is really more knowledge architecture. And we're trying to put in place this broader architecture. So is there an evolution of an organization as a knowledge organization, and many of the methods and tools and things and the roles and the functions, we should expect them to change? Yes? Is this a better question?
And I think you're right. The one thing that's always consistent in all of the conversation is change. And it's the hardest thing for us to tackle because we want to deal with people. I know in academia, a lot of times, you've heard the biggest challenge in the future of academia is knowing what we're going to create, what workers are we going to create for the future. And so many times I think that knowledge management is definitely part of it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the only answer to it, but it's definitely looking forward, and it's still part of it, and we keep chasing that dream, just like we're here today trying to chase down where the next evolution of this comes from. So knowing that we are going to be part of that solution, because we know knowledge has to carry forward, and we have to figure out a way to do it in a realistic and meaningful way. We know that we're going to be part of that future students in the future, training those for those jobs that we don't know are going to be out there in the future as well.
I think that's really the right question, Denise. What are the jobs? What do they actually do? Not the jobs, what do you actually do? And I think very much that the things that are missing are leadership and management in this area. That's what's really missing, is trying to make it understandable to senior management that what the corporate assets really are, what the value is. But more than that is providing some coherent approach and strategy, which is what this panel was about. So making it understood what really needs to happen within organizations to make that happen, and carving it up into little bits and providing the management and leadership, spelling out what that means, making it practicable, ensuring that there are some very clear-cut roles, and that's part of the management too, is making it clear what these roles are. And you just mentioned change. I think innovation is really, it's innovation and change. It's that we have to constantly reinvent ourselves, regardless of what field you're in, and using the information and knowledge that the organization has created to provide that strategy and forward-moving approach. Because we have to do it so much more rapidly. We have to reinvent ourselves all the time. And the information that we've created, the knowledge that we have in our organizations are our greatest asset. It's really creating value from the organization's intangible assets. So I think there are lots of jobs out there, lots of things. I think would be a long, long, long list of what they do. But and most importantly, I think it's kind of the new management approach, incorporating information and knowledge as part of the core business organization.
I'm glad you brought up the functions part, because one of the things that I wanted to interject into this roles was that what was provided to start this conference with was an organizational slice through this thing called knowledge management. The slice that I prefer, there's not right and wrong. Another slice through this thing, knowledge management, would be by activities. And Carla and I have spent quite a bit of time, and Frank and Douglas and Michael, we've gone through this exercise back in 2003, 2004. We republished some of our work into a book form. And we used a technique that we used with our communities to identify the landscape of a door engineer, to identify the landscape of a tire engineer. And we thought it was a bit amusing. Let's apply that same technique on ourselves. So the things that we were coaching as a knowledge coach, we applied to ourselves. And so we modeled the KM domain. And then in a recent publication, what we've done is taken and gone even further. We've broken down the knowledge management domain into 3 subdomains. And the first domain is activities where we see people observing and facilitating communication and sharing between people. And one of the tools in that activity is all the social media Web 2.0 tools. So there's that group. Then there's a group that's only concerned with, or their primary focus is on the actual content and context that's flowing. Now I use an analogy, a hydraulic analogy, where tools are pipes and the fluid flowing in the pipes is the knowledge and the content. And so this first group is looking at the pipe that goes between me and Denise, and looking at the pipe that goes between me and Carla, and they're identifying Denise, Carla, and Steve. And they're applying tools, the pipes, that are IT tools. This other group, the second group, is looking at the fluid. Is the fluid clear? Is it stagnant? Is it evaporating? Because I think there's a lot of evaporation going on in here. Is everybody writing all of this down, all of these conclusions? We're kind of good. I'm glad somebody's doing a knowledge management job. So the second group is looking at the fluid. Now the third group is a decision-making group. And what they're interested in is the why in the pipe. Why does some of the fluid flow to Denise, and why does some of it flow to Carla? And why does some of what Carla is commenting flow to Denise? What are the decisions that bend the fluid to somebody else? So those 3 activities, which I think we called interaction-based knowledge management, content in context knowledge management, and artificial intelligence or decision-making, those 3 areas is where I would personally start with defining what knowledge management looks like and defining what the curriculums would be. Now, for those 3 subdomains, there's also a group of shared disciplines that all 3 use. And there's blurred lines between the 3. Some people stand in both, some stand in all 3 of them and go back and forth across. Some only stand in one. And one of the reasons that we created the document, because the worst enemy of the other 2 over here, or in fact, I would say, regardless of where you stand, is that if you're in the second community, you're not really doing knowledge management, because knowledge management only occurs in the 3rd domain or in the 1st domain. Or if you're in the 1st domain, then the other 2 domains, that's not really knowledge management.
Steve, would you pull functions out of those 3 those 3
Oh yeah.
communities?
The way the knowledge manager acts,
Sure.
and participate is absolutely different.
Different from the other 2.
And the tools that they use are different.
Okay.
But there's going to be things that they need to have that are identical, like appreciative inquiry, active listening, organizational change and development, organizational engineering. So there's a core set of functions that they all need to be able to do.
So if we go back to Denise's sort of rephrasing the question,
it's the